You might be curious as to the field I'm referring to. The field I'm referring to is the stock market right now, and we do have the director CEO of the Acuity Stockbrokers and the president of the Colombo Stockbrokers Association with us. Let's learn a little bit about him, then we'll talk to him.
Prashant Fernando is the CEO of Acuity Stockbrokers and current president of the Colombo Stockbrokers Association. In 2001, he was instrumental in setting up the DFCC Stockbrokers and served as its Director Sales and Marketing. With the formation of Acuity Partners Group in 2009, Prashant was appointed Director, Chief Operating Officer of Acuity Stockbrokers, and since 2012 serves as its Director and Chief Executive Officer. Prashant holds a master's degree in business administration from Edith Cowan University, Australia. He counts over 28 years of experience in capital markets and is one of the most senior stockbrokers in the industry.
And Mr. Prashant Fernando is here in the studio with us. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
Now, of course, you have a flurry of titles, so I wasn't sure where to start, but I'll actually start with Acuity Stockbrokers. Now, a lot of people have heard the name, and it is a very well-known house in Sri Lanka, but in your words, what is Acuity Stockbrokers?
So Acuity was formed in 2009 with the operational merger of DFCC Stockbrokers together with HMB Stockbrokers. We brought in the staff of both entities and merged operationally and continued our work from there as Acuity. So HMB and DFCC, all the non-core banking activities were brought under the Acuity umbrella, under Acuity Partners, which is the holding company of Acuity Stockbrokers. And so that was the beginning of Acuity Stockbrokers.
All right. Now, of course, now Acuity Stockbrokers, or the parent companies, have a long history in the Sri Lankan stock market.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the stock market, actually the Stockbrokers Association actually formed, and the stock houses, the broking houses are actually formed?
See, originally in the early 90s, when the Colombo Stock Exchange started, there were about 15 broking houses. So they are the key, who are referred to as member houses, member brokers rather. So thereafter, we had brought in trading members with new licenses, and then in 1995, the Colombo Stockbrokers Association was formed, where member firms as well as trading members joined in. So currently we have 21 members. So we are basically the industry body representing the broking industry.
Of course, you've been here in the industry for 28 years, as we heard. So how have you seen the evolution of the stock market in Sri Lanka?
We have seen the advent of big foreign names in our market. We have seen JP Morgan, Smith New Court, ABN AMRO, likewise some big houses, foreign entities that entered our market in the early 90s. But we saw that within a decade, most of those names went away from our market again, and it came back to virtually local entities running the show. So we have seen how, and of course lots of our member firms, most of the staff have been trained internationally by these organizations, so there's a flavor of international acumen in these people. So that's a huge benefit we have. So Stockbroking Association has evolved a lot in the last so many years, and so now we are trying to see how we can take it to the next level.
And in your view, how is the current status of the stock market? Now, of course, we are coming from a tumultuous year. We had an Easter Sunday bomb attack. We had, of course, lots of press coverage after that, and the tourism sectors dipped, a lot of sectors dipped. And of course, then we went into an election season. Now we are post-election season and might be heading into another general election next year as well.
I mean, stock market is all about, we need political stability. Foreign investors, local investors, they crave for stability. Stability is key. So hopefully that is behind us. We have stability. Of course, we know in a few months' time there is going to be a general election. So I'm sure most investors mostly I'm referring to mostly the foreign investors, wait for stability to return to be sure exactly who's running this government. So I reckon by March
Yeah.
we should have that. Lot of confidence has come back into the market after elections. We have seen our market go up almost 200 points,
Yeah.
and volumes have drastically improved from the after elections. Even today, market has saw about 1.2 billion in volume, which is almost double the average volume for the rest of the year.
That's great. Now, of course, talking about market levels, we won't get into the specifics, but what sectors are looking very promising in Sri Lanka right now? I'm just asking.
Construction,
Yeah.
with the after elections, construction industry has been one of the key areas retailers are looking at, because this government in power was known to be heavily involved in construction activities. So a lot of the stocks related to construction has been really chased after by retailers. You have banking sector stocks, also there is a lot of interest, and diversifieds. Those are the key areas.
Now, Mr. Fernando, of course, heading back into Acuity Stockbrokers. Now, of course, like you have actually said, there is that trading aspect to it. But what other services do you provide?
Any broking house of any size, you have research. We do fundamental research into listed companies, where we actually visit companies, analyze their accounts, talk to management, and forecast our predictions for the company, which we distribute to our clients. So that's our primary product that we do.
Okay, and of course, you have actually involving with a lot of other sister companies, and of
Yes,
course,
within the group we have other from asset management, we manage unit trusts, venture capital, and we have a primary dealership as well within our group.
All right, and of course, moving on to the Colombo Stockbrokers Association. Of course, you told me an interesting story just before the show began about how the Colombo Stockbrokers Association first was the one that actually transcended into the Colombo Stock Exchange. So can you just take us through?
So that's beginning of before the stock exchange was formed. There were two associations that were running the stock market in Sri Lanka, and the merger of those two entities became the Colombo Stock Exchange, which is there today.
Yeah, and of course, now you're the president of the Colombo Stockbrokers Association. I think there are a lot of people who are interested to know, like, what type of regulations are right now being considered, and what are the ones that might be in place in a couple of months?
This year, the new Securities Exchange Commission Act was tabled in Parliament, and it was debated in Parliament, and there were some amendments that had to be done, and that it's at that point at the moment. The amendments had to go back to Parliament and get approved.
So what's in the act right now?
It basically gives a lot more teeth to the regulator, as well as allows the industry to bring in new products. Right now we have plain vanilla, it's just equity trading.
Yeah.
But going forward, we can other products of derivative trading, various other products can be brought into the market, which thus far we are deprived of.
Yeah. Is there anything else that's happening as well?
Demutualization of the stock exchange, that's one of the key things we are waiting for.
Yeah.
Again, has been discussed for the last, I reckon, 15 years,
Yeah.
but finally it has come to a point of final negotiations were done. It's again waiting for cabinet approval.
Now, when you say demutualization of stock exchange, can you just explain?
The Colombo Stock Exchange is owned by 15 member firms. So it's a non-profit organization, and we don't take money out of the stock exchange. It's there. So although we own it, we don't have any return out of it. So demutualization is where we actually issue shares to the existing shareholders. And then obviously there will be some kind of, like the nominee in other countries, where you sell down. Although if you divide the 100% of the stock exchange by the 15 investors who are there in it currently, what we generally do is we try to bring in a strategic investor into the stock exchange, and then any of our members want to sell, they can exit as well. And at some point the stock exchange itself can get listed in the stock exchange.
Yeah, and of course, I think you can actually explain it better. Like, what are the benefits of actually demutualizing a stock exchange and actually having the ownership being traded?
It's basically more transparency. It gives people more visibility that your market, what you're playing in, is available and it's open.
Yeah.
So that gives a kind of comfort for investors.
And also, now of course, being the president of the association, can you just tell us about the association itself? What do you do for the members?
So basically, we are the voice for all members. If there are any concerns, any regulatory aspects, any issues we need to take up with the regulator, either the Colombo Stock Exchange or the Securities Exchange Commission, it's we as a body who represent the industry with the regulator. So things come up regularly, the CC Act, the new mutualization. So as the body, we take it up.
Yeah, and now I ask this because now there might be firms or people who want to join the association. How do they actually go about doing that?
Anybody is free to join. Actually, we had more members earlier. Few members over the years have dropped out. Actually, after I took over the presidency, I had invited all of them to come back. Due to differences earlier, some members left, but I have invited all of them to come back, and it's good that all members should be a part of the organization.
So everybody can have a voice.
Yes.
And of course, now as you are, leadership style, what do you see as possible avenues for the Sri Lanka Stock Exchange? Now, of course, you talked about a little bit of demutualization, more transparency. Now, of course, going forward, going to the future, now this is a very technology-oriented environment out there. So what do you see for the future of the stock exchange?
Firstly, Sri Lanka is categorized as the frontier markets. So with us in the bag of frontier markets, you will have countries like Vietnam, Cambodia. We have smaller countries than us. So we are right now on the top of the frontier market category. One aspect we would like to see going forward is to see how we can go into the next level, is the emerging markets, which has a larger pool of foreign funds that goes to the emerging markets. So even if you are a small player in the emerging markets, we will attract a larger pool of money. So our aim is to somehow see how we can get ourselves into that. So for that, there are other criteria Sri Lanka has to meet, liquidity criteria, which we need to meet as well. So we need more listed companies, we need more liquidity in our market. Those are the elements that will help us to get to the next level.
Yeah.
Technology-wise, when we need to get to the next, we have gone quite on the tech side as well. We are quite forward there. We have all the apps, trading apps are there. The next level, I reckon, is where investors are trading virtually on their own.
I think you actually transform the back end and the front end of the stock exchange.
Which in the last few years, with the assistance of our regulators, we have all the brokers have gone into new back office systems, which was thus far one of the huge impediments our industry faced.
Yeah.
Basically, during the wartime, we couldn't, and none of the brokers could afford to go into sophisticated IT systems. But now we are done. We are ready for the change, waiting for the next level.
All right, that's great. Now, of course, I want to ask something that the viewers might be really interested in. Now, of course, a lot of people always hear about, all right, this is happening in the stock market. The stock market is up. These are the companies that are coming in. This is a great time to invest. So, as a stockbroker, I'm not asking as the president or the CEO, what advice do you have for somebody who wants to trade? What are the advice the recommendations you'll make about the things they should do?
Some self-study. You must, if you're putting your money, you must know what you're investing in. Do a bit of research. Your broker should be able to provide you their research, but you must be able to read up and understand something what you're doing, not to get into junk shares, get into some fundamentally valued shares. So you don't need to be an accountant or lawyer or something to understand that. It's very basic stuff. Basically, see there is value in the stock you're investing in, so that there is some recourse you are not gone into some junk.
Yeah. Now, when you mention junk stock, what do you mean?
that's shares that have virtually no value, and your risk of losing money is high.
Yeah.
There are companies that have over the years virtually gone into bankruptcy, and there are some shares like that in the market. So it is very easy to get tempted. You will see, if you're doing online trading, you might see some share going at 1 rupee or 2 rupees. You will think, oh, that looks cheap, I can buy that. You can, but then you are running a risk, because why is it at those prices? Why is it going so cheap? Because nobody wants it, or there's no fundamental value, or that company doesn't give you a return, or there is no dividend income, or there is no profitability. Some of these companies may be running at huge losses.
Yeah. Now, of course, something you mentioned earlier, when like the global stock exchanges or the frontier, the ones who are not frontier, the ones who are, in the top of the world.
Okay.
So when they are looking at markets like Sri Lanka, they sometimes see them as stocks, not as the stock market itself. So how, now you mentioned about liquidity and of course the amount of companies that are being traded. How would, Sri Lanka being ranked as one of them actually do to the next step? Now, of course, is it the companies getting listed or the liquidity level?
It's both.
Yeah.
You need more companies and you need liquid companies. Now, right now we have, unfortunately, a handful of companies that are liquid enough. I mean, you can count that on one palm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all we have. I mean, you have John Keel's Holding, just to list, it's the most
Yeah.
liquid company in Sri Lanka. Then you have Commercial Bank. Then you have Dialog Telecom. Those are the most liquid companies we have. Others are very few. I mean, there is foreign trading, but limited.
Yeah. Something I've heard, now you need, I believe, 6 or companies that are of some larger scale to be considered one of the emerging, from the emerging to frontier and frontier to emerging.
Yeah.
So that's the
So, I mean, we have some, we have appealed to the government numerous times. We are not asking government to privatize, but we are asking government to list some of the government entities, profitable government entities. You can have them listed. For example, the Bank of Ceylon. I mean, that will add a huge impetus to the market.
And of
Or
course,
Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, for example.
and of course, they will become more transparent.
More transparent as well. And I mean, we have seen before this one of the government entities, that's People's Leasing, which has been a resounding success.
Yeah. And of course, apart from, of course, the publicity you get and of course the cash flow inflow, what are the benefits of actually getting listed in the stock market?
It's transparency, you get the credibility, and then if you need to raise money, you can very easily go on foreign road shows and raise money for very much lower cost than going and borrowing out there.
There is a credibility that has been associated. Now, of course, Mr. Prashant Fernando, I'll get into your personal, so when you were starting out, what actually interested you to actually get into the stock market?
That's a long story.
Okay,
so I joined as a management trainee in a company called Forbes & Walker. So once you join that company, that's primarily a brokerage company, more involved in tea, as tea broking. So as a management trainee, you're assigned to a division. So the trainees who come in that year are all assigned to different divisions, and I happened to be sent to tea. So I was doing tea tasting for almost a year. Whilst I was tea tasting, upstairs was a stockbroking house. So I used to visit there, and I was quite interested in how the stock market was happening. And when there was a window of opportunity for me to get transferred there, I took it.
All right.
And that never looked back.
So the interest was garnered through just seeing what was happening, right?
Basically, unlike tea, this was more exciting too for me.
Yeah, okay. So lots of excitement there, and of course, any advice you have for potential investors or business owners about the stock market right now?
For business owners, I would say the time is ripe for you to look at coming into the market. We have SME board as well, where smaller companies also can get themselves listed. If you have companies below the 100 million threshold, which is currently the requirement to get it listed, even smaller entities can come into a new board that was created at the stock exchange, encouraging smaller ventures to come into the market.
Can you expand on that? I think
Small and medium term enterprises. So
Yeah.
that's a new initiative of the SEC. They brought in this window where
Yeah.
small enterprises as a stepping stone to get onto the main board of the stock exchange.
Yeah.
So that's was opportunity, but we have still, there are lots of companies in the pipeline to come in now. So I reckon in the next few months we might have some listings there shortly.
So is that something for this like the small SME initiative? Is it for something like the seed money for a lot of the
Yes.
startups and stuff like
Like
that?
for startups, exactly.
All right.
So it's you can raise money, bring in your company. Whether it's, you don't have to have all the strict stringent criteria that is there to get onto the main board. Is not there for this.
Okay.
So it's a step. It's what we refer to as like a stepping stone to get into the main board one day.
Yeah, and of course, something else before I let you go, I wanted to ask. Now, you mentioned about the 15 companies that are in the ownership of the Stockbrokers Association. Apart from that, of course, there are other
15 of the owners of the Colombo Stock Exchange.
Yeah, it's Columbus Stock,
Exchange.
Stock Exchange, and there are of course other stockbrokers houses around as well.
Yes.
So, what is the relationship between those and the Columbus Stock Exchange?
They are trading members. Actually, there is no difference as such.
Yeah.
I mean, we theoretically own the stock exchange, the 15 brokers, broking houses, but others are trading members as well. There is, apart from classified under member firms and trading members, there is no difference.
Okay, so if any company wants to get, start a broking association, they can actually become a
Broking house.
broking house.
Broking house, you need to get a license.
Oh.
I don't know whether anybody would, in that today's context, will want to get into, because the market has not been the most attractive.
Yeah.
Because see, to maintain a broking house, there's a minimum capital requirements. So if there is no return on that capital at the moment, it's not attractive. So, but going forward, I reckon it's already changing.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thank you, Mr. Prashant Fernando, for joining us. I think it has been a very fruitful conversation,
Okay.
and of course,
Lovely being here.
yes, and I think a very informative segment on the stock market and of course stockbroking and broking houses. We got lots of information coming your way. That was Mr. Prashant Fernando. He is the Director CEO of Acuity Stockbrokers and the President of the Colombo Stockbrokers Association. And we thank him again for joining us. And with that, we will be winding up the personality segment. Now, of course, we do have a stock market update coming your way in just a minute, along with the market discussion. But meanwhile, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned in. We'll be right back.